Hey everybody, it's Jared.
And this is Brandon.
And this is the Fanboys Forever. This is one of our great year-in review videos. And today we're going to be talking about one of our very favorite subjects. We don't get to talk about it often enough, the movies. Here at Fanboys Forever.
Well, not just movies, but all media.
Yeah, all media.
Talk about, touch on everything a little bit.
And, we love to do toy reviews, and we mostly talk about toys when we get the chance. But, of course, along with toys, if you're into toys, chances are you're going to be into movies.
Yes.
You're going to be into
You'll
video
notice
games.
most of the toys that we talk about are movie toy
That's
lines.
Right.
Even if the movies
media.
are based on other adapted media. So that's an adaptation of an adaptation. I don't know.
Yeah, it is. And it all, goes and it's all reciprocal. Thanks to Star Wars that started all that trend.
Absolutely.
So, 2013 was a really interesting year because there was a lot of movies turned out, very differently than I thought they would. And there were some, that turned out better, some turned out worse. But I don't really feel like it was a bad year at all for movies because I didn't really go to see anything that I didn't really like that much.
No, I think everything turned out very well, actually. There was, usually in a big year, a crowded year with a year that's crowded with tentpole films, usually one very big disappointment. But I can say without hesitation that this year I wasn't, there are things I like less than others, and certainly things I like more than others, but I wasn't disappointed in anything. I think that there was a real standard of quality for all of the big, big budget tentpole films this year that we saw anyway. There's a few that we're just not interested in.
Well, that's not to say there wasn't any bad movies this year. We just didn't see them if there were.
We tend, just like if you watched our year in toys review, which we'll link somewhere in here so you can get to it more conveniently. We said we tend to try and focus on the positive, and if we don't think we're going to enjoy something, we won't go see it.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point?
So yeah, we only go to see things we think we'll enjoy, and almost always we tend to enjoy them.
So I want to lead off by talking a little bit about some of the more major events in terms of movie news that happened this year. One of the very biggest things that occurred this year was Man of Steel. When it came out, a very, very big thing. There was a lot of different ideas about how people would accept Zack Snyder's Superman movie and what it would be like. After it came out, people were more divided than ever when it came to the opinions and the thoughts on the movie.
It was the most harshly divided movie of its type in a long time. Usually it's pretty clear cut. People love it or they hate it. This one was practically down the middle to the both extreme ends on both sides. It was really bizarre.
It was, you had people you couldn't really be in the middle on the movie. You either had to be one of these people that absolutely loved it and thought it was perfect, or you absolutely hated it and thought it was the worst thing that ever happened to the character.
Yeah. In our case, I think that we're closer to the middle than most people are.
Right.
I really love the movie, but it certainly had its flaws.
Right.
It comes down to if you can accept, Snyder's style. And this is, I've seen every movie that he's made up to this point, and I've been a big fan of his, going back to Dawn of the Dead, the Dawn of the Dead remake. And, this is the least stylized film he's ever worked on, but it still carries a lot. It still is very clearly a Zack Snyder film in terms of pacing, in terms of construction, and that's something some people can't get behind, and I can understand that, but we certainly really like the movie.
I think the very most controversial thing about the movie would have to be, there's two things really. There's the amount of destruction in it, which I don't see any sort of problem with, I think. And the other thing is, spoiler alert, whatever you want to say.
It's been out for half a year, people.
If you've not seen it, then, too bad.
Sorry.
But Superman, snaps General Zod's neck at the end. People got so upset about this. I don't really necessarily understand, because Superman was he going to let that family get killed?
Well, sure, that would be the Superman thing to do.
That's people are like, well, he's Superman, he can't do that. Well,
yeah. Well, and the thing I had no problem with it. It didn't make me uncomfortable for a second. I'm glad he did, and for the character, I think it would have become Superman less to let him live and to let him keep hurting people.
That's right.
That's an ages-old argument for a lot of these characters. Should Batman kill the Joker? Should, so on and so forth. There's no answer, but and a lot of times, but in this case, I feel very strongly about this answer. And what I don't like is that there are people reacting as if there are people who explain it and would have you believe that Superman snaps his neck and then does jumping jacks and like runs around high fiving everybody in the room, but it's obviously a difficult decision for Superman that he can't, it's very difficult for him to process, and it's translated very well.
And like Goyer and Snyder have said before, how else are you going to explain Superman's aversion to killing?
This is his first adventure, in the context of this story. It's not like it's a Superman who's had, who's lived by this golden rule for an entire career of superheroism.
So I think in the end it shows a real, for one thing, it shows a terrible double standard with people about Superman. Either Superman is too boring and he doesn't do enough fighting, and that's the Superman Returns idea. Why does Superman fight more? Superman needs to fight. Or he goes too far and he does too much fighting and he's just too violent. Shame on him.
Then, Superman should uphold to a higher moral standard than a lot of superheroes. But, I didn't hear anybody, not a single person I know said boo when Captain America was like blowing people away with a machine gun in the Avengers last year. Where's the standard of decency on that one?
Also, nobody said anything when Batman just let Ra's al Ghul get killed at the end of Batman Begins. Also, nobody said anything when Batman clearly killed all those guys at the end of Dark Knight Rises when he was blowing up the trucks and stuff.
He's just going crazy at the end.
Nobody says anything.
Now, again, in that, I get it in that situation.
And he killed Talia. He
clearly
absolutely killed her in that wreck.
Iron Man just killed Aldrich Killian at the end of Iron Man 3.
Pepper did, I suppose.
Thor kills Malekith at the end of the new Thor. It's just, it goes on and on. It's tradition, Batman just kills the Joker at the end of Batman 89. No matter how goofy the surrounding action was, he really kills him. That's the way that it's done in these feature films. And so, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of criticism about this subgenre of films, about comic book movies, comic book action films or superhero films, that maybe the violence isn't realistic. And I think that it's not that it's graphically realistic violence, but this is just a little too close for comfort for a lot of people. It's tough to watch. It's not a pleasant, it's not cool to look at. It's not like a big effects thing, and he doesn't snap off a one-liner after he does it to like make people feel better about being happy he's dead. But that was just the type of film that they went for, and it got its fans as well as its enemies, of course.
In the aftermath of Man of Steel, that had, like we said, it was just split right down the middle. So many people loved it, so many people hated it. And then we have at San Diego, they do this announcement about there's going to be a Batman versus Superman movie, or Batman and Superman, however you want to put it. But either way, I was really thrilled to hear about it. But instantly, speculation was running rampant about who was going to be playing Batman in the movie. Well, we got the answer, a couple of months later, 2 or 3 months later, and it was Ben Affleck. And you and I both were big supporters of that from the very beginning. Yeah. Because I was always crazy over the Daredevil movie, particularly the director's cut of that movie.
Regardless of some of the poor decisions he's made in recent years, which, and just in the last few years, of course, he's sort of reemerged as this brilliant movie director, and who would have known? His first film, Gone Baby Gone, is just one of the best crime dramas that's been made in a very long time. But I've been a big fan of Affleck's, going back to to his stuff with Kevin Smith. I think his performance in Dogma is absolutely phenomenal. I think the whole film hinges on that. It's a film I really love in general, has a lot of its ideas. But I think that there's a lot of people who really want to underscore his abilities as a performer. And again, I know that he's made some stinker movies, and he's turned in some very lackluster performances in the past. But this is such a high caliber project that he's just not gonna. I'm sure he's not gonna phone it in. There's nothing. Yeah, this is not something he's tread into lightly. I can almost guarantee it.
I really feel like this is the right decision for Batman to go and cast someone who is basically completely opposite from Christian Bale. The rumor, the implication of what Kevin Smith has said, because he's seen the costume and we haven't yet, is that it is totally 100% different, than what they did with the Dark Knight trilogy costume and everything. And I think that Ben Affleck is just part of that do something as different as you can. This is supposed to be an older Batman, kind of world-weary Batman. Do something, we've seen the Christian Bale Batman for years. Let's try something a little different. Let's see. To me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Why do the same thing when you can do something different? And it amuses me that people are so up in arms about Ben Affleck playing Batman, because if you look at him, and when you play Batman, the only part of your body you can see, there's two things. You can see your eyes, and you can see your mouth and chin. Mm-hmm. So Ben Affleck must have the largest, most superheroic chin of any of the people that's ever played Batman.
I mean, you mock up a photo of the guy, and he looks dead on like the Arkham video
those
game
Arkham
Batman.
Asylum images. And look at the mock-ups. It's the same exact thing. So, you're telling me that that's not going to, be imposing as Batman? The guy will look like Arkham Asylum Batman, pretty much. He'll look like Arkham Origins Batman.
We've seen photos. We know he's getting in really good shape, which we know he's been capable of.
So this will blow over, just like it did with Michael Keaton.
Well, people are warming up to it more and more.
Right.
I think the scale has shifted to being predominantly positive right about now. And it took some doing, but that's true of everything.
Right.
The fan base for a particular character is so fickle. It's like we were talking about Superman. They want something different until they get it, and then they try to poke as many holes in it as possible. But like I said, we try to remain positive always, and if we had a problem with it, we would certainly let you know. It's not just us, playing up to Warner Brothers or whatever, because they're not. It's not like they're writing us a check or anything. Not yet, anyway. But I really just have a good feeling about it, and I trust Snyder's decision making and the whole crew of people involved with it.
I think it's going to turn out great.
Yeah.
The other big announcement was we got an announcement for Avengers 2: Age of Ultron, which apparently has nothing to do with the comic story arc Age of Ultron, but
it's a good solid title.
Yeah, it's a great title. We're really excited about it. We don't know much about it. We know that Tony Stark will somehow be the one.
Yeah, at least involved in the creation.
Yeah, Ultron. But it's really going to be interesting. Particularly exciting for us is the casting of Ultron himself.
Yes.
James Spader is going to be playing Ultron with motion capture and the voice, and Spader is one of our favorite character actors.
Absolutely.
And Robert California himself. So, I'm super excited.
Spader has this uncanny ability to be very intimidating and creepy with doing very little.
Yes.
I've been a big fan of Spader's for a long time, going back to Stargate, the original Stargate movie, and just all sorts of... He's done so much weird stuff. I love Boston Legal, Secretary. Very weird movie, but I really dig it. So it's just this is par for the course for Marvel Studios. It's just such a... Marvel Studios calls me on the phone. Hey, Brennan, who would you pick to play Ultron? I would have named off 1,000 people before I thought of James Spader. It's just one of those unorthodox choices that I have absolutely every feeling that is going to work out perfectly. I think it's just right on.
Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled, and we don't know much about the movie yet, so there's not much use in...
And I don't want to know. I don't want to know very much about it.
Who wants to be spoiled?
It gets really close.
But I'm really looking forward to it.
And then, of course, we got new heroes. The Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver.
That's right.
Will be added to the team. And that caused a little bit of controversy with the sort of mini feud between the Marvel camps. Of course, Fox still has the rights to the X-Men characters and not Marvel Studios, and just very soon after we were alerted that Quicksilver would be in Age of Ultron, we got this announcement that, guess what? Quicksilver is also going to be in X-Men Days of Future Past, which is a confusing legal situation, but apparently A-OK, so that caused a little rift. We're glad Bryan Singer's back for X-Men Days of Future Past, and I hate to think it's a way of kind of stealing the thunder
striking back
from Marvel Studios, but you never know. I mean, I hope it's done for the right decision. I hope it's the right decision done for the right reason, but we'll see.
Yeah. We were just talking about Marvel and what a great job they're doing with their movies, and they're doing such a great job that when one comes out that's that's good, but it's not great.
Yeah.
It's hard not to say, it's a disappointment. This is so bad. But then you got to think, wait a minute, they've got a really high standard here.
Yeah, and they've done such a great job so far. I know Jared loved the film, which I can understand. I had some mixed feelings about Iron Man 2. although I think it's perfectly fine, and I did enjoy it. Um, Whenever you've got something so successful going on, I think there's a lot of people who are just sort of sitting around and waiting for the ball to drop. And like I said, we try to remain positive. I'm not like sitting around, certainly not hoping for like a failure for Marvel Studios, but I am curious, what will be the first film that's either bad, which I think at this point they've got a sufficient enough safety net that they're not going to make a bad film, or which one's going to be not successful. I think they were on a dangerous tightrope with Thor: The Dark World.
Absolutely. I think Thor: The Dark World, there's several things going on with the movie that really puts it in danger of falling over into that mediocre kind of category. Thankfully, it saves itself a little bit, but let's just go to the very heart of the matter for me, which is direction. I think that overall story was good. I really do. I think that the story was interesting, and the Dark Elves are, of course, something that's worthy of their own story of Marvel. But what you end up seeing is the direction of the movie feels really, really, really lifeless.
Yeah.
You've got the first 40% of the movie, 30% of the movie feels very directionless, very strange. There's no bite or interest or comedy to the characters. They just seem to interact, and you don't really feel anything with their interactions. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people complain about Kenneth Branagh and the original Thor. Of course, I never was one of them. I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. And the brilliant part was its charm. And this movie didn't have charm.
I think that first film was underrated in general.
Absolutely, it was completely underrated.
The first film is as underrated as this one is overrated.
Yeah, absolutely.
In our estimation. And Jared's absolutely right. Just I don't remember feeling very much of anything.
That's right.
That first half of the movie is really just there to carry the story along, and it doesn't ever reach any real emotionally impacting heights, unfortunately.
And there's some emotional things that go on in the movie. Spoiler alert here, but Thor's mother getting killed, Frigga. That should be a big deal.
Yeah.
But I didn't really feel anything for it. It felt contrived. It felt like something that I thought, that's going to happen. Yeah. It happened. Sort of surprised when it happened. But why then? Why was I tearing up in the first Thor just when Odin and Thor were getting into arguments, or when he thinks that Odin's dead even though he's not? Sorry, big difference in direction there. When absolutely. You can think a character's dead and you can see the emotion in the characters' faces and it makes you feel something. I should have felt a lot more than I did.
I think we're emotionally cheated in the film. I think the difference between Thor: The Dark World and some of the previous films is that it's rasping for these emotional heights, but it's delivering very sanitized, very consumable.
That's right.
A very consumable version of emotion. It's a crowd pleaser. That's something that everybody understands why it's sad, even if everybody doesn't really feel anything. I mean, certainly I didn't feel very much. There are previous films and other films this year, other big tentpoles, reached for literal deep emotion. Iron Man 3, just the previous Marvel Studios film from earlier in the year, really achieved something very special in its emotional exploration of the character. It gave you tools to feel with where Thor: The Dark World told you how to feel.
That's right. That's absolutely correct. Thor: The Dark World, you look at it, and it's like you have a director that, he's interested in telling the story and telling it adequately, which, I'm not trying to slam Alan Taylor here, but I'm just saying that his style doesn't lend... To me, he does not seem like an actor's director. Mm-hmm. And Kenneth Branagh, in my opinion, is a true actor's director. Like, he can wring a performance out of people, and he can do it the right way and make them feel comfortable about it.
Well, you've got to consider Branagh's background, as a Shakespearean master. He did, say, Henry V, which has got an incredible all-star cast, including Christian Bale. That's one of the best performance films ever, I think. Certainly one of my favorites. He just has this way of, convincing actors to deliver something that will speak to the audience. And Taylor, who of course is well known for directing Game of Thrones for HBO. He's a very good storytelling director, but I feel like he should be partnered up with somebody who can just get something out of the performers. But again, for what it attempts to do, which is tell the story, which is create something that's very digestible for a mass audience, a really mass audience. That he in that instance, he's a good choice for it.
Well, there's two big complaints I have when it comes to performers in the film that really suffer from the absence of a director like Branagh. And number one is the Jane Foster character with Natalie Portman. That character went from being kind of charming, and giddy and sort of... you just loved seeing her and Thor together on the screen in the first film. I mean, it just made me feel good. You really rooted for them. Mm-hmm. To kind of, she's just kind of nauseating and sort of irritating.
Yeah.
Just kind of, she's not very interesting. She didn't really seem to have anything too important to do in the movie. Mm-hmm. There's
she was a very, there for utilitarian purposes, there to, interject this, the planet alignment idea into the Thor story.
They had to do something to make her important. There wasn't an emotional component of the character that made her important.
No. I can remember being very worried that she might not come back for the sequel after coming off of the first movie, to now not caring at all if she's back for Thor 3 or Avengers 2 or whatever it is.
We've also got the bigger tragedy, I think, is wasting Christopher Eccleston, who plays Malekith, the Dark Elf. And Eccleston is a wonderful actor. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a particularly good guy or anything because of his how unfair he's been to Doctor Who fans.
Yeah, he's kind of a closed-minded performer. Yeah, he's got some personal issues. Certainly.
He's got some hang-ups, but I do think he is a great performer. Mm-hmm. And let's say in a movie that's really bad, like Rise of Cobra, the G.I. Joe movie, he was excellent as Destro.
The real highlight of that movie. Just a consummate performer who's always going to deliver something very cool.
But with Malekith, they did the makeup to where not only could you barely even tell it was Eccleston, to the point where they covered his face up, hinders his acting. Mm-hmm. Also, the even bigger crime is Eccleston has a wonderful voice. Mm-hmm. It's very powerful. It's very forceful. But it can also have a lot of sincerity and a lot of, there's a lot of nuance to it. And they absolutely synthesize his voice to the point where any actor could have played it and it wouldn't matter.
Well, and he's mostly speaking in the alien language.
Yeah, the Elvish tongue.
So that's so unfortunate. You take a performer. I'm sure they wasted money in the long run getting somebody of that caliber of talent to just cover up. Like Jared said, they could have put any stuntman in that suit and he would have been just fine in the part.
So I would consider, to me, compared to the other Marvel movies, The Dark World is the first, in my opinion, near miss. Yeah. But just good enough. Yeah. That's what I would say.
It's still, a terrifically entertaining film.
Good action movie. But
lots of good spectacle, but just didn't reach any heights and emotional and emotion or sincerity, it's the hallmark. It makes me worry that they're leaning more towards comedy, which I don't think is a good idea necessarily. I think they've struck the balance with the comedy to the action to the drama so far, and I didn't like the balance in The Dark World, and I hope it's not an indication where it's going.
The little Guardians of the Galaxy preview with the Collector in the ending credits, that didn't look too good.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't very impressed. It was very awkward.
And I really hope that the actual film is nothing like that.
And I love Benicio del Toro.
Oh, me too. But it was just...
I'm very fascinated by what he's doing, but I have to see it in more context before I can make a real decision.
I wasn't very impressed by it.
I don't think it worked, and it definitely didn't work in the context of Thor: The Dark World.
I thought at first that it was like a comedy thing. I'll just be totally honest with you.
Yeah, like a gag.
A little alien girl comes prancing out doing a little racist, Asian walk.
Yeah.
But it was, I didn't feel it, and I still am keeping a very open mind about Guardians of the Galaxy. That press image was shown off today. That first official look at the cast. It looks really good.
Well, I trust James Gunn, and I really like the cast they've gotten together. So, I'm not so worried about the film itself, about the quality of the production. My major concern with Guardians of the Galaxy is that I'm not sure if it's going to be successful or not.
Right.
You've got characters from Marvel Studios, characters like Thor, Captain America, or even Iron Man, of course, never had a big theatrical feature film before. And you don't know. You don't know if they're going to play with audiences. People are going to accept them. But I think Guardians of the Galaxy is just such an unknown quantity. Even if Thor or Captain America have never had a big movie, they're still a collective,
people
subconscious
still know about
awareness
them.
of
Kids
those
still
characters.
know who they are, and you can't say that about Guardians of the Galaxy. So, good luck to them. We're kind of focusing on the uncertain and the, in some ways, negative about some of these Marvel movies, but I want us to go back to closer, to the beginning of the summer when Iron Man 3 came out, and that was just wonderful.
Yeah, I absolutely loved Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had been, in some ways I've been let down by Iron Man 2. Certainly wasn't what I expected, and prior to The Dark World coming out, I thought it was the weakest film that Marvel Studios had put out. But, Iron Man 3 just was a complete turnaround.
Cutting through everything else, the big controversy for Iron Man 3 was what they did with the Mandarin. What they did with the Mandarin, I thought, worked perfectly for the movie.
Yeah, that was just a... again, it's the reaction is what makes me upset about things like this, because, there's this collective knee-jerk reaction, and, it's the Mandarin's not like even though he's really Iron Man's nemesis, he's not like an A-class villain. He's not the Green Goblin, and he's not Doctor Doom. A lot of these people who reacted to this, I'm sure a lot of them don't really know anything about the Mandarin.
They don't actually know.
They probably never read a comic book featuring the Mandarin. And so it's just this, this mob mentality that if it's been changed, it's obviously for the worse, even if they don't really understand it. And, there was a way to do comic book Mandarin in there somehow, but I just think this was such a clever... the Mandarin is a racist character, and I'm not.
Absolutely.
I'm not that bell ringer who complains about this was a racist move or that. But he's a racist character. That he's a conglomeration, a representation of our fears of Eastern culture coming off of World War II and when we were in the Vietnam conflict, and he was just a very thin. Shallow character, really, who's meant to play up on our fears. Just a flimsy creation, in real world terms of the comic book character, I think. And what they did in the movie was such an excellent trick to audiences, worldwide, playing on that very same thing, and that was just brilliant.
It's such great writing, because I think Drew Pearce understood very quickly that when thinking about the essence of the Mandarin character, like Brandon said, he hit the nail on the head. The Mandarin's all about playing on the reader's fears about Eastern culture. Mm-hmm. And when you get into the movie, you understand then that Killian is doing the exact same thing with people, playing on your fears of Eastern culture and, the kind of Osama bin Laden kind of fear, just creating an Osama bin Laden, in a way is more true to the spirit of the Mandarin character than if they had attempted a 10 rings wearing, buck tooth, crazy, slant-eyed. That's so offensive, to even go there. Why not do it like this? And it's more intelligent, and it's even truer to the actual notion of the character, that he is a stereotype meant to frighten people and get a response.
And you've got an actor as endlessly talented as Ben Kingsley. Mm-hmm. How much better is it to get not one excellent performance, but two excellent performances from him? When he's in the guise of the Mandarin, very genuinely frightening, very intimidating cat. But then as Trevor Slattery, extremely funny. And, very charming.
Absolutely hilarious. I can't wait to see the short film coming up. I'll be curious what they do. But Iron Man 3, was an absolute victory, and
knockout.
Yeah, it was awesome. So hey, let's just hope Winter Soldier is like that. We'll be in good shape.
And it's looking good so far. So we're very excited.